Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we dig into the key stories coming out of Addis Fortune, Ethiopia's biggest English weekly.
That's right. And today, we're really looking at this collision course. You've got rapid urban growth, big economic reforms, butting heads with, well, the reality of infrastructure on the ground.
Exactly. It's all about that friction. We're synthesizing reports from Fortune on everything from the daily grind of transport to shifts in national trade policy.
Yeah, it's a mix, isn't it? You have these really immediate, urgent problems, transport safety that everyone feels, but they're tied into these bigger systemic things, like trade structures changing, the impact of the currency.
So our mission today is to give you that curated view, connect those dots using the insights from Addis Fortune. We want to unpack the, frankly, staggering cost of gridlock. Look at how traditional trade models are being disrupted.
And also the regulatory side. The big leaps needed, or maybe not happening fast enough, to ensure safety and stability in really key sectors.
Okay, let's dive right in. Segment 1, the daily crisis. Addis Abeba's transport gridlock. It feels like the most immediate point of friction for so many people.
Oh, definitely. The reports in Fortune really capture it. Since students went back, offices filled up. Well, those early morning streets.
Yeah.
Places like Hale Garment Roundabout, Sarasabo, Atirapiba.
Yeah.
They're described as war zones of anxiety. That's a direct quote from the paper.
Wow. War zones of anxiety. And it's not just feeling stressed, it's the time, right? Journeys that were maybe an hour are now easily taking 2.
Easily. Especially since schools reopened, and if you're trying to catch a bus or minibus, forget it. Near the Skylight Hotel, that stretch in Bolé by the airport cargo terminal.
I know the one.
People are waiting over an hour. The lines, they just snake way, way beyond the sidewalk. It's quite a scene.
And it hits people in unexpected ways, too. Our reporters highlighted a story about a courier, Mulugetatis' home.
Yeah, that was striking. He got slapped with a 100 birr fine. Why? For stepping outside a pedestrian lane.
Why was he outside the lane?
Because the crowds were just too dense. He essentially got fined because the system itself is overwhelmed. There was nowhere else to stand.
That's frustrating, doesn't even cover it.
Yeah.
And think about the cost, not just fines, but the actual transport. We heard from Mekte's Mola, a mother.
Right. She pays 1,000 birr a month just for a dedicated seat for her kids on a school service.
1,000 birr. And she's still late for work constantly because of the traffic delays affecting everything.
And her question, it just cuts right through, doesn't it? Is transportation a luxury? She told Fortune the Lost Time that daily stress is actually worse than the money.
It really makes you think. And there's a fundamental flaw here, right? The mass transport system caps the fares.
Which sounds good, helping keep costs low. But the unintended consequence, it keeps taxis, especially the higher capacity ones, out of the really busy districts.
Why? Because they're scared of fines from traffic controllers if they get stuck.
Exactly. The low fares mean they can't afford to sit in gridlock for hours. So the policy designed to help affordability actually contributes to the scarcity of transport where it's needed most.
And the economic cost of all this wasted time and fuel. It's enormous. The figures cited in Fortune are, well, pretty shocking.
They are. Between 696.6 million and 806.3 million birr annually. Lost to congestion.
That's almost $1 billion birr.
Yeah.
And the biggest chunk of that.
Time. Wasted time. Like Mekte's Mola's mornings.
Yeah.
That accounts for 74% of the total cost.
74%.
Yeah.
Just from people sitting, waiting.
And get this, just one road project, the Culfer District 18 Compressive Road, that single stretch racks up 274.2 million birr in lost economic value every year by itself.
So this isn't just annoying, it's a serious drain on the city's and the country's economy.
Absolutely. And then you look at the proposed solutions versus the scale of the problem. The light rail system, remember how much hope was pinned on that?
Yeah, it was supposed to change everything.
Well, Fortune reports only half the trains are even operational. Lack of maintenance, spare parts. The basics aren't there.
So the main alternative isn't even running properly. And the investment needed.
The city estimates $500 billion birr over the next decade for proper modernization. $500 billion.
Okay. And what's the current annual budget allocation for transport infrastructure?
About 11.6 billion birr. It's just nowhere near enough. A tiny fraction of what's needed.
So you end up with officials proposing things like staggering school hours, maybe dedicated bus lanes, trying to keep trucks off the road during rush hour.
Right. Yabibal Addis at the Transport Bureau mentioned staggered hours. Abi Aline from Kotebia Metropolitan College talked about rapid bus corridors and limiting trucks. These are sensible ideas, but
they feel like stopgaps, right? Band-aids, as one expert put it. without massive investment in a properly integrated multimodal system.
You're just tinkering around the edges of a massive structural problem. It really shows that infrastructure failure has a huge tangible cost.
Okay, let's shift from infrastructure failure to maybe policy friction, where rules and reality collide. There's actually been a positive development reported in Fortune regarding imports, right?
Yes, a significant one. The Customs Commission finally ended that long-standing policy, the one requiring importers to put down huge cash deposits just to move their shipping containers out of the dry ports.
Ah, I remember reading about that. That tied up so much working capital for businesses.
Exactly. Millions. We spoke to an importer, Anwar Addis. He recalled having to deposit 800,000 birr for just 4 containers at Mojo Dry Port. That's cash just sitting there, unusable.
So what's the new system?
They've replaced the cash deposit requirement with letters of guarantee, or LOGTs, but it's specifically for unimodal shipping.
Unimodal meaning?
Meaning the container uses just one mode of transport after arriving, typically truck transport from the port, not the more complex multimodal routes.
Got it. But still, for those unimodal shipments, using all logs instead of cash must be a huge help.
Oh, importers called it a big relief. It frees up cash immediately. They can use it for duties, taxes, other operational costs. It tackles a major liquidity bottleneck.
So a definite win for streamlining things, reducing bureaucracy. But is it all smooth sailing now?
Not entirely. There's still friction. Importers are saying the 15-day window they have to return the empty containers, it's often unrealistic.
Why? Logistical delays? Fuel shortages?
Both. Plus other bottlenecks in the system. 15 days sounds okay on paper, but in reality, it's tough to meet.
And there's another bit of friction here, isn't there? A contradiction within the government system itself.
Right. While the Customs Commission has moved to logs for Unimodal, the state-owned Ethiopian Shipping and Logistics, ESL, they still demand cash deposits for their multimodal services.
How much are we talking?
About 100,000 birr for a standard 20-foot container, 200,000 for a 40-foot one. So ESL, the government's own logistics giant, hasn't adopted the new, less burdensome standard that another government body, Customs, is pushing.
That seems uncoordinated. Why the difference?
That is the friction. It suggests the relief is only partial, and different parts of the state apparatus aren't quite aligned. ESL is sticking to the older, capital-intensive model for its more complex services.
Interesting. Okay, that lack of coordination, that friction, it leads us nicely into the next major area. A huge structural shift happening in agricultural exports, specifically challenging the Ethiopian Commodity Exchange, the ECX.
Yeah, the ECX is facing, well, a crisis, frankly. It was launched about 17 years ago, a massive reform back then meant to modernize trade.
And it handled huge volumes for years. What's happening now?
The numbers are stark. Last fiscal year, it did facilitate trades worth 27.3 billion birr, which sounds like a lot. But that was only 55% of its own target volume. And overall, volumes actually dropped by nearly half compared to the previous year, a 50% drop.
Wow. So what's replacing it? Where is that trade volume going?
It's shifting rapidly towards a rival model, vertical integration.
Meaning exporters are just bypassing the ECX altogether.
Exactly. They're going directly to farmers or cooperatives to source commodities.
And is this catching on?
Massively. Take coffee, Ethiopia's biggest export earner. In 2023, over 90% of that $1.3 billion in coffee export revenue came from these direct vertical integration deals, not through the ECX.
90%. So exporters are actively choosing not to use the exchange.
Yeah.
Why? What are their complaints?
Fortune detailed several key grievances. A major one is quality control. Exporters reported persistent issues at the ECX warehouses, things like mixing old crops with new ones, inconsistent quality.
Which must be disastrous for international buyers.
Totally. It leads to costly rejections. There was one example cited of an $83,000 shipment to China getting rejected because the goods sourced via ECX were found to be tainted or substandard.
Ouch. Any other reasons?
Price volatility on the exchange was another big one. White soybean prices, for instance, apparently soared 143% in just 1 year on the ECX platform. That kind of unpredictability makes it really hard for exporters to plan and price contracts.
So basically, for high-value exports where quality and traceability are critical, the centralized, anonymous ECX model just isn't cutting it anymore.
That seems to be the core issue. Vertical integration allows exporters to control quality right from the farm level, ensuring traceability and accountability right through to the port. The market is demanding that level of control.
But the ECX isn't just giving up, is it? What's their response?
No, they're fighting back. They're trying to broaden their offerings, planning to trade up to 28 different commodities, and they're developing a new online trading platform.
Okay, modernizing their tech makes sense.
But here's the, let's call it an interesting strategic choice. They are also investing heavily in a massive new physical building, a 36-story headquarters near Laguerre.
36 stories. How much is that costing?
5.1 billion birr.
Wow. So wait, the market is moving towards decentralized direct sourcing because of quality control issues inherent in a centralized system. And the ECX's big move is to build a giant, expensive, centralized physical headquarters. Doesn't that seem contradictory?
It does raise questions, doesn't it? Investing so much in a central structure when the market seems to be demanding the opposite, more flexible, direct relationships.
Especially when you hear critiques like the one from investment consultant Sani Took, reported in Fortune. He argued the ECX often benefits intermediaries, the brokers, more than the actual farmers.
Yeah, he cited examples like brokers pocketing up to 700 birr per quintal, that's 100 kilos on sesame trades. It forces you to ask, who is the current ECX system, and perhaps this new building really designed to serve?
A really critical question. Okay, let's move from trade structures to something impacting public health directly, pharmaceuticals. Here we see another major policy collision.
Yes, this one is particularly concerning. On the one hand, the government has done a great job strategically of boosting local drug manufacturing. Public procurement from local firms has skyrocketed.
How much?
From under $1 billion birr just 3 years ago to 15.6 billion birr now. A massive increase aimed at national self-reliance in medicine.
This sounds like a huge success story, so what's the problem?
The problem is foreign exchange, or Forex. Since July of last year, the National Bank of Ethiopia made a crucial change. It removed pharmaceuticals from the priority list for getting access to foreign currency.
Wait, medicines are no longer a priority for Forex allocation?
Apparently not on the top tier list. And the impact, according to manufacturers speaking to Fortune, has been devastating.
How so?
They now have to wait weeks, sometimes months, just to get the Forex needed to import essential raw materials and active ingredients. Plus, they have to deposit over 100% of the Forex value up front in birr.
Over 100% while they wait.
Yes, and think about what the birr has been doing against the dollar. It lost 154% in value in just 1 year. So these companies are depositing huge sums, waiting and watching the currency depreciate, eroding the value of their deposit while their input costs soar.
That sounds impossible to manage financially, especially with government contracts.
Exactly. The government buyer, the Ethiopian Pharmaceutical Supply Service, EPSS, typically uses year-long fixed-price contracts.
Fixed prices for a whole year, when your input costs are fluctuating wildly because of Forex delays and currency depreciation.
Precisely. Industry leaders are saying it's completely unsustainable. The policy environment, despite the push for local procurement, is actually making local manufacturing incredibly difficult, maybe even a losing game. The Forex policy is directly undermining the procurement policy.
That's a really stark example of policy friction with serious consequences for health. Okay, finally, let's touch on safety literally, the physical safety in our cities. Elevators.
Yeah, this was another eye-opening piece in Fortune. Addis Ababa has over 52,000 multi-story buildings now. Massive vertical growth.
And the elevators in all those buildings.
The market has been largely unregulated, a shocking lack of oversight for such critical infrastructure.
And that lack of regulation has had consequences.
Tragic ones. The report mentioned 3 deaths linked to elevator accidents in 2022. And just this past March, an elevator plunged with 14 people inside. Thankfully, no fatalities that time, but terrifying.
14 people. Goodness. What was the issue? Cheap equipment? Poor maintenance?
Likely both. Industry insiders told Fortune the market has been flooded with cheap and substandard elevators. Without proper regulation and inspection, safety gets compromised.
So, is anything being done?
Yes, finally. The Ethiopian Construction Authority is stepping in. They're rolling out the first proper, comprehensive licensing system.
For who? Installers?
For installers, yes. For maintenance companies, too. And really importantly, for independent safety inspection companies.
Independent inspectors. Why is that crucial?
To avoid conflicts of interest. Previously, the company that installed or maintained the elevator might also be the one inspecting it. Now there's a requirement for third-party, unaffiliated inspectors to do the safety checks.
That makes a lot of sense. How's the industry reacting?
Some, like Chabot Engineering mentioned in the report, welcome it. They see it as a way to finally weed out the unsafe, low-quality players and ensure a level playing field for responsible companies.
But is everyone convinced it will work?
There's some skepticism, mainly around enforcement capacity. Can the authority actually monitor and enforce these new rules effectively across thousands of buildings? That remains the big question mark.
Okay, so looking back across everything we've discussed, drawing from this week's Addis fortune, we've seen the huge economic cost of transport gridlock.
Yeah, driven by underinvestment and some policy contradictions, we've seen the shift away from the centralized ECX towards direct sourcing and trade, mainly because of quality control demands.
We saw how Forex policy, maybe designed for broader economic stability, is creating intense friction and potentially undermining local pharmaceutical manufacturing.
And finally, the urgent need for safety regulations, like with elevators, as the city grows vertically at such a rapid pace.
What's the pattern you see emerging from all these different reports?
It really feels like a city, and maybe the country as a whole, trying to manage immense growth and major policy transitions all at the same time under intense pressure.
And the friction comes when those big macro-level reforms, whether it's how Forex is allocated or how trade is structured, hit the ground.
Exactly. They might be designed for long-term efficiency, but they create these really sharp, short-term pain points. Medicine shortages, traders feeling displaced, commuters losing hours every single day. It's the human cost of navigating these big shifts.
Which really brings us to the final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. This friction, it seems like the unavoidable price of progress in Addis Ababa right now. You see it everywhere in the data reported by Fortune.
Yeah, whether it's the hundreds of millions lost to traffic jams, or the struggle for manufacturers to get dollars, or even just the sheer time wasted trying to get around.
So the question is, how much friction is just inevitable? When a city is growing this fast, trying to bridge decades of infrastructure gaps and update regulations almost overnight.
And maybe, where's the breaking point? For businesses, for the average person caught between rising costs and diminishing time. What forces, ultimately, will push the infrastructure and the policies to finally catch up with the ambition?
We'll keep tracking those forces and those stories right here, drawing on the reporting of Addis Fortune. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.